Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the HearSports Podcast Show. I'm Kyle Newman, your host.
And I'm Rhett Hensley, your co-host.
On this show, anything sports goes, whether professional, college, or even high school. Debate is highly likely, laughter is always encouraged, good times is a given, and hashtag great sports talk will be a reoccurring theme. Today we will talk about Tom Thibodeau being fired, Tom Brady's punishment for Deflategate, upcoming rule changes in college basketball, and the NCAA paying college players debate. Rhett Hensley, how are you doing this morning? A little early for you, huh, kid?
It's a little early, but hey, glad to be talking some sports.
It's always good to talk sports. And
to hear sports.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I'm happy to be back here. We've got our second HearSports show. It's going to be a good one. We're going to try and be on track with the hour today, but we're going to get a lot in with this hour. So let's get into Tom Thibodeau being fired, Rhett, after 5 seasons with the Bulls. I know you and I agree on this one, but I want to hear what you have to say about it first. What'd you think about it?
Oh boy, see, this is the thing. For somebody that had an above 500 record for the time that he was there, and they're going to fire him after all the accomplishments that he's done. He's got NBA Coach of the Year award. And, you know, he's took them pretty far.
Yeah, well, he definitely has. You talk about that record, 255 and 139. And he came in with star point guard Derrick Rose, and he took over a team that Derrick Rose had been injured with the knee injuries, and they were trying to build. And I got to tell you, I think that the Bulls, this is a problem that we've seen recently in the NBA. Coaches being let go when they really shouldn't have. And you just wonder what it was. I have to believe that it was something within the organization that led to this firing. Maybe Tom Thibodeau was butting heads with management. Who knows what it was? But I will say this doesn't come to be a surprise for a lot of people, especially close in the Bulls organization, because there were hints of him being fired during the season, that when it came to an end he was going to be let go, and I just don't agree with it. I mean, we talked about that record in 5 years as the Bulls head coach, and he really changed this team. That's what I want to talk about with this Bulls team. Much like the Pacers, who Frank Vogel built to be a defensive team, that's what Tom Thibodeau did with the Bulls. Defensive-minded team, tops of the league every year since he's been here. I think that the Bulls made a poor decision to let him go. Quite frankly, I don't think they're going to find anyone better out there to replace him. They're talking about replacing him with Iowa State's coach Fred Hoiberg, but I don't see anybody having the success that he had, and to break the culture, Rhett. That's they want a culture change, is what they say. I don't understand that. So you want to change from a team that's been successful and made it to the playoffs every year behind him? I don't.
Especially when Derrick Rose is injured. That's the thing. I'll tell you what, even though they did not have Derrick Rose many of those years, they still came out swinging and made it to the playoffs. And did pretty decent in the playoffs and fought hard. And that's because Tom Thibodeau made them. I feel like he's the one that shaped them into the people they are on the court. He brought out the fire in each one of those players.
I agree. He's like he just, I can compare it to Frank Vogel because he's a defensive-minded coach, and he's had the Pacers the tops of the NBA each year defensively, and that's what he is. And not only that, but he gets the guys on the same page chemistry-wise. Everybody likes him. Everybody gets along with him. That's the sense that I got. And when he got fired, you saw the players react that way as well. And I don't know what teams are looking for nowadays in a coach. I think they're expecting way too much because, let's face it, we said 5 straight years of making the playoffs, that incredible record. Everyone's happy in Chicago with him. And I think it's unfair for the Bulls this year. Sure, they didn't make it past the semifinals again. They lost to the Cavs, but let's evaluate the situation. Rose was back, but was he really Derrick Rose again because he was injured this year? Pau Gasol was injured on and off throughout the playoffs. The full team was not there for the Bulls again, and they were facing a giant in the Cleveland Cavaliers who are, in the NBA Finals right now. So I think that too much expectations was put on the guy, and 5 years, and he kept improving every year. And what's for what if they're just going to fire him? And I don't know if it's teams just. The Bulls looked at it like, okay, well, we didn't advance past the semifinals in how many years under him, and maybe that's enough for it. They want that next step, but the way I see it, is that next step really going to happen with the new coach that they bring in? I mean, Tom Thibodeau was established. I don't see it happening. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a crazy thing. The NBA, I feel like they're getting away, like you said, and don't really know what direction they're going. But, Tom Thibodeau, he said the firing hurt. He did come out and say that the firing hurt. He was getting paid $9 million. That's pretty incredible for a coach.
It is, and it just goes to show you what the Bulls were willing to give up for him. I mean, you already mentioned it. He was still under contract. He had 2 years left. So they have to pay the remainder of his contract, and they were willing to fire him. That's another thing that bothers me. You couldn't even hold out your end of the bargain with the man's contract of 2 years. All right, so things in the Bulls organization's mind, it's going wrong. So, all right, play out the contract that you agreed with the man on, and then let him go. But to let him go with 2 years left when he was as successful as a coach as he was, I just think that I think it's asinine, quite frankly, and I think the Bulls are going to regret it. I'm going to say that right now. I think that whether they make the playoffs or not next year will be less on the new coach's part and more on the players that they still have in the organization. And I don't think that they'll improve. So, that's why I question what are they looking for? A change in culture, so you don't want to be one of the top defensive teams in the NBA. You don't want to keep players together and bring free agents in like Pau Gasol, and I don't know what they're doing. So I think they're going to regret it, and I think the work culture is going to completely be switched around. So
I hope they regret it.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? You almost want to say something like that when a team lets go of a guy as successful as he had been for them. And again, and I love Frank Vogel, but as a Pacers fan, if Frank Vogel happened to be let go, Tom Thibodeau's a guy I'd want to be picked up in a heartbeat, number one on the list.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a lot of teams that are interested in Tom Thibodeau. There's no doubt about that.
I believe.
Yes, there are. There's teams that have contacted him, and in fact, a couple of the teams that were interested, they had just actually hired a couple coaches. The New Orleans Pelicans in one, and I'm trying to look for that other team.
The Phoenix Suns are also interested also.
So the Suns are a new team. That would be an interesting fit for him there.
And Los Angeles Lakers.
The Lakers? Really?
Yes.
That's that would be very interesting to see where he goes. I hope he goes somewhere that just fits him right, and believe me, I see wherever he goes, I think he will change that team around. But I'm curious to read off some of these reactions. I want to read off because they're interesting. I should say. Derrick Rose was asked about Tom Thibodeau being fired and what he thinks. He said, it's not up to me, but if it was, he would be back. So that shows some support right there. How about Taj Gibson suggested that Tom Thibodeau was the right coach for the team moving forward. He said, if you want to be coached and pushed, Tibbs is the coach for you. If you don't want to get better, this isn't the team for you. More support there. How about Joakim Noah? I just want to thank Tibbs for all the hard work he put in, and I wish him the best. President Barack Obama even weighed in on it because he's a big Chicago sports fan. And he said, love Tibbs and think he did a great job. Sorry to see him go, but expect he will be snatched up soon by another team. A lot of supporters.
This is when I think, really, if the players wanted him to come back, I think that they could get him to come back. The players have a bigger pool than people think. And
I agree with that. I do.
If the players aren't happy with that, then they can make a change with that. And they can persuade the management to bring him back. So when they say that they don't have a voice in that, I don't believe that at all.
Yeah,
so.
Players have I agree. They have a big voice in their coach's situation. We've seen that in the past with players. They go out to support their coach because they want to keep them there badly. And I definitely think that the players, who knows what this changes here. That's the next thing I want to ask you. Do you think that this changes a man like Jimmy Butler's decision to stay in Chicago? Do you think that this core team will break down now because they've lost such a great coach? What do you think?
Well, I think that Derrick Rose has changed Jimmy Butler's mind on staying. And I'd say that Tom Thibodeau hasn't helped. So, if Tom Thibodeau ended up going to the Lakers or somewhere like that, I could see Jimmy Butler falling there because the Los Angeles Lakers is a place that is interested in Jimmy Butler. And, hey, sweeten the pot with this old coach.
Indeed. Well, I mentioned the New Orleans Pelicans were interested in Thibodeau until they hired a new coach. Also, the Orlando Magic were, but they also hired a new coach. So it's interesting that there's already teams. He was just fired this past week, and there's already several teams interested in him. I don't expect him to be a vacant head coach for a long time. That's for sure. But I think that it's both pretty clear that the Bulls are going to regret it, and I think it was the wrong decision. And he shaped. There's no doubt about it that he shaped the Chicago Bulls into the team that they are today. Before he arrived, they were not the same team, much like the Pacers were not the same team before Frank Vogel arrived. So there's a lot of similarities there, and quite frankly, I just think they're going to regret it. So I guess we will see. But it is, I think it's time for the NBA organizations to wake up and to start reevaluating their goals with their coaches. Because, is it really not enough to have almost 100 games above 500 record and to take your team to the playoffs every year? Some teams would dream for that. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous, and I guess we will see here going forward. But too bad for the Chicago Bulls. Maybe that'll help the Pacers next year. Maybe they'll be a little bit worse because the Indiana Pacers coming back. We believe it.
Exactly.
So we'll see with that. All right, let's get into this next segment. And as a huge Colts fan, talk about a team I despise. And with that, the biggest player that I despise on that team, and that's Tom Brady. And he was punished for Deflategate with his involvement in it 4 games. And now he's trying to appeal it. So I want to ask you first, do you think that this was enough of a penalty, or should he be punished even harder to be made an example of?
Well, I like Tom Brady.
Wow.
There's no question. I don't like the Patriots. I like Tom Brady. Actually, let me change that. I respect Tom Brady. I respect
Much
him.
like you respect LeBron James, but you can't stand them?
Yes, exactly. But I would say that I like Tom Brady a little bit more than LeBron, because I just can't stand LeBron. But anyway, back to the fact. So, I think that he should be made an example of, for the fact that when you're altering the game that is played, you need to be punished for that. Especially if they go to extreme extents to make sure the balls are perfect.
They do.
And when you go out of your way to make sure that those balls are deflated, that takes some some thinking involved in that, because it's not easy.
Yeah, it was plotted, and I love this topic because I love to rip the Patriots, and I'll be the first to admit, as a Colts fan, like I said on last week's show, this cheating situation it's typical Patriots, but it had nothing to do with the impact of the outcome of the game, because they destroyed us. It was an embarrassing performance by the Colts, but that is besides the point. They have had our numbers in recent years, but they're a team, and I'm going to mention something here in a second that I didn't know about, and it just is typical Patriots, and of course it would be us that they would choose to cheat against. And that's the biggest thing in this situation, is that the fact that they had to go to the level of cheating. It was the same thing with the Spygate. Why does this team, as successful as they are, have to break the rules? They're seen as this bad boy type of team that, yes, they're winning and all, and I think it's going to hurt their reputation as a team for all the win that they definitely puts a blemish on their reputation, the fact that they have to cheat to get where they are. And it just seems like it's typical Patriots. But to set the foundation, basically after the AFC Championship game, an investigation came out, and it was found that 11 of the 12 Patriots footballs were underinflated by more than 2 PSIs. And basically every ball gets checked before the game, and they come out there. So the fact that they were underinflated, so you have somebody on the inside, probably an equipment guy who was basically the one handling them and involved in the cheating. But then you look at Tom Brady, and I want to talk about his suspension. 4 games, I think that they definitely got it right with the 4 games immediately. Now, whether or not it should be more than that, I'm not sure, because this is the first time something like this has come out to my knowledge. And, so I guess it's a fair punishment for him. But I say that in light of the fact that the NFL had to do this. After the year that they had this past year, with all of the domestic violence cases, Roger Goodell was on the hot seat, and he could not get this one wrong. And that's why, with the Ray Rice, it was a 2 games first, and that whole mess started from that. They made the wrong decision. In this one, they made the right decision. They had to. They went out, no questions about it. He suspended 4 games, and I think that tried to coat his butt a little bit because he had to. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this appeal process. I don't think he'll win. I think it will stay at 4 games. But the thing is with this scandal is, the whole fact of the matter is that they went to the level of cheating, and that's the biggest thing in my mind, And let's make no mistake, and players have weighed in on it. Underinflated balls give you a big advantage. The balls are required to be inflated between 12.5 and 13.5 pounds per square inch, and they're supposed to weigh between 14 and 15 ounces. and then once they're approved by the referee, the balls are put into ball bags and they're set on the sidelines for each team. But the ball bags are not guarded or watched in any way. When an official calls for a new football, a team's designated ball boy will get a new football from the ball bag and give it to the official. So they've been, they were in cooperation with it, and it was found out. It wouldn't be hard to find something like that out, because at halftime they checked the balls again, and that's where they found that there were underinflated balls by quite a bit. And it's just, and some of the players weighed in on it, and some of them thought that it didn't matter, but go figure, the Patriots ones, of course, because after the the blowout that it was, they didn't see it as a big deal, but they've got to cover for their team, of course. Now, I do love what a couple of the Colts players said, because it got me cracking up, especially our punter, Pat McAfee, who's an hilarious dude. He said, if New England was to be disqualified, we'd be their replacements, right? I should probably lay off these strawberry margaritas. That's just classic. Something that I would probably say. And then Darius Butler chimed in, so he said, so we get to play this game again or nah? So I like the humor that they had, but it's, how about the great Jerry Rice saying that 11 of 12 balls underinflated? Can anyone spell cheating? # just saying. I mean, there's no doubt about it that, it's a team that is just, to me, it's typical Patriots, and I think that the outcome of the game is irrelevant. It's the fact that they cheated, and Tom Brady is the man behind the center who touches the ball the most in the game. And so he has to be held responsible for this Deflategate, bottom line. And, the team was punished. That's the next thing I want to talk about. They were fined $1 million, and they had to forfeit a first-round pick in 2016 and a fourth-round pick in 2017. So, it's not like they didn't get anything. So that's why the NFL got this right. They didn't lay low on this.
Well, I think that they got everything right except Tom Brady's suspension. I think that he needs to be at least suspended half the season, if not more.
Half the season.
And that's
wow. And
that's because
I could switch my comment just to agree with you, because I hate the Patriots and I wouldn't mind seeing them suspended half the season. But I truly do think that 4 games is enough, unless more spills out here, like
a 10-game suspension for Greg Hardy for domestic violence, all right? And then you have somebody that blatantly cheated
I wouldn't put
in the NFL during a playoff game.
Okay. I wouldn't put cheating on the same level as domestic violence. Those are.
But that's off the field, and this is cheating off the field. Domestic violence is a
much bigger issue.
And we're about to see it get appealed.
I know.
Because it did get dismissed. So
there were plenty of other domestic violence cases, though, and the NFL got some of them wrong. Again, they had a rough year last year. They didn't make the right suspensions and all. But let's face it. I want to talk about, both are wrong. But when I look at ethics and morals, domestic violence is a much bigger issue than cheating in a football game.
Yes, it is.
Let's be real.
But it is. But if we're gonna have this type of game suspension, I think that we need to hold it closer to the higher standards that it is, especially for the first time it happening, and you're only suspending 4 games. Well, heck, 4 games, that's not much.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, do it.
I don't. Like I said, I would not mind seeing it. I would just not compare something like this to domestic violence. But I think that.
But it got dismissed. So
well, that's one case. But who knows? It's probably gonna be coming back up. Quite honestly, this has been.
I'm holding up the dismissal of that, and if he still gets a 10-game suspension for that, and then somebody like Tom Brady, which he didn't get in trouble for that, but Tom Brady only getting 4 games for this. Tom Brady, I feel like he's like the golden child of the NFL.
Boy for a reason. Everyone kisses butt to him.
Yes. Yeah, so I feel like I think he's getting let off easy on this, especially since they have evidence. And I like Tom Brady to an extent.
Boy too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I think that there's a certain level of you have to hold him to a different standard for the first time. And, heck, Tony Romo did that. I would think that they need to suspend him for longer.
You think he needs to be held accountable because he's the quarterback of the team who obviously knew.
He's the leader of the team, and he's a veteran. And the first time doing that, if anybody in the league set an example. Exactly.
Well, the appeal is set for June 23rd.
It's not his first time.
So it'll be interesting to see in a few weeks what comes out of that. But the biggest thing, it just goes back to me cheating. And then typical Tom Brady avoiding the situation and acting like he knows nothing about it. When he first spoke about it, he basically avoided the questions, but said that he was surprised about the ruling and didn't comment much more on it than that. He kind of made in the press conference, he kind of made a humor out of the situation and more in a way of avoiding the question. So covering for his butt is what he's doing, and he was obviously involved in it because I will never believe that the quarterback of a football team would not be involved when they are the ones who care most about the pressure of the football. It's ridiculous. Of course he knew about it.
He has to deny it. He's got to deny it.
Yeah, of course he has to deny it.
He's trying to save his butt, and he's trying to save the organization's butt. So he's going to, I expected him to deny it.
Yeah, I did too. The interesting thing to me here is that this is why I think if there were to be a chance that maybe there would be more of a penalty, or in some people's eyes, at least just show that this happened more than once, and this is just the typical New England Patriots, and they're just digging themselves a deeper grave. The fact that the game earlier last year, when the Colts played the Patriots again, for the first time, there was a report that the Patriots underinflated the footballs in that game. And some of our players on the Indianapolis Colts came out with it again, saying that they felt like the balls were light, and that kind of got the NFL, and they wanted the NFL to look into the situation. And I think that having the fact that it happened once and then again versus the same team, the rivals, it's what level will this team not go to get an advantage is the way I see it. And they're cheaters. I can't.
They didn't get caught the first time, so they wanted to do it the second
why not?
time.
I mean, that's how I see it. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll take a leg up any way we can on the Indianapolis Colts, so we'll do it the first time. And that's what I find. That's what I find ironic about it is, it happens to be against the Colts the first time, and then it happens to be against the Colts the second time, and it's just it's what to me what's going to happen this year. What else are they going to cheat on in the game this year? Because that's what teams are starting to view the Patriots as is, what's next.
Now, Kyle, let me touch one more time on this. Now, when I'm bringing up the domestic violence with Greg Hardy, I am not saying first of all I don't agree with it. So I'm saying with the dismissal, since he got dismissed from that charge, the case got abolished, and if he gets stuck with the 10-game suspension compared to something that is not a thing and should not get punished for that, went to a guy that deflated the balls in an NFL game, especially the playoffs, and, took away from the game, he only gets 4-game suspension versus a guy that got accused of something and then the case got abolished. I think that right there.
Well, basically, the NFL needs to get it right. The bottom line is they've screwed up in the past year and a half.
Yes.
They've been off on the rulings, giving Ray Rice a certain amount of suspension and then double jeopardying it and changing it, and then, Ray McDonald, Greg Hardy, the list goes on and on last year for players that were in trouble and the rules.
Now, I do believe that there needs to be something. They need to set examples on each one of those players, obviously. But if the case does get taken away, that's where it needs to be taken from the record.
I agree. I think we're both on the same page. You want to see more of a suspension. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I think that they got it right with at least a 4-game suspension. But the bottom line is the New England Patriots are cheaters.
Let's just say that you guys will need all the help you guys can get next year.
No, I'll disagree with that statement. But I will say that it wouldn't hurt to have some help to face the Patriots if they were without Tom Brady, because it would be nice to get a win against them finally. But
you guys need Tom Brady out so you guys can get a win.
We'll have plenty of other wins, but yes, against that team, that's been a correct fact in recent years. The facts don't lie with that. But moving on to this next segment, and going to the college basketball level on the men's side, I want to talk about upcoming rule changes. Are they good or bad? And do you think that they will help players as they transition into the NBA? Because I think that's where a lot of these rule changes are stemming from. Let's talk about this first one that I see that I think will happen for sure. Reduce the shot clock from 35 seconds to 30 seconds. I think that this is a good idea, but I think that this has been too long in the making. I think that 35 seconds was way too long, and it is worth mentioning in the past it used to be 45 seconds, and it used to not have a shot clock at all.
Okay, 45 seconds, what, could you hold the ball for 9 days?
If you look back on games in the past when there was no shot clock in college basketball, you literally saw they could have the ball for 2 minutes. Sometimes.
And that's how it is. That's how it is in high school.
Sometimes possessions never change. It seems like they hardly ever change in a quarter. Now we're on the college level, especially high school. When you're talking about what is it, 8 minutes or 10-minute quarters? I mean that. Yeah. Our high school team, literally held the ball for 2 or 3 minutes. They held the ball so long that they were getting booed. Yeah.
Because they were playing their rivals, and it was coming down to it was second half, and they held the ball the entire second half, and that's how they won.
See, I think it's an issue. It changes. It's an issue mainly. I think it's for 2 reasons. One, because it screws up the pace of play. And it gives a team that is maybe way ahead such an advantage. They can just toss the ball around. And I think it makes the game less competitive and certainly for fans less entertaining. For 2, I agree, and this is where I really do think that this change is coming from. I think that it restricts the players' ability to get into an offense, and especially for players that are going to the next level. It's a hard adjustment when you're used to having a lot more time with the basketball to run an offense than in college when you're not. So I think a lot of this is stemming from that, changing it so these players can get accustomed to faster styles of play on offense and running it quickly getting used to that
Well,
faster pace. And Rhett, I think it's a good idea. I honestly think 30.
yeah,
I think
long time
30 is too
coming.
long still. I think they need to get down
I
to the
think 30
NBA.
is too long. That's what I was about to say. I think it needs to be closer to the NBA. I'd say 25 seconds, 26 seconds. I think that's a great amount right there. I mean, they don't need all day with the ball. So I think that getting down closer to the NBA level would be a great idea.
I do too. I think that will be very a very good situation. And the other thing that I don't like, in 35 seconds with what it is currently, you have so much time. If the game is down to the wire at the end, to see that the team with 35 seconds left in the game can hold the ball that entire time to win the game, that's a lot of time at the end of the game where stuff could be happening. And 35 seconds for one team's possession is too much. I like the NBA 24 seconds. There's a lot less time left in the game and a lot more that can play out in the end. And I think it makes for more entertainment and it makes for more twists at the end of the game. So that's one thing that's bothered me as much as I love college basketball, some of these rules, especially the long shot clock, down toward the end of the game, like, oh my gosh, so much time left and they're going to be able to hold the ball the whole time. That bothers me. I think it gives the team such an advantage, and I think it will be good for the pace of play. So I think we both agree, Rhett, that this is a long time coming and it's a good change.
Yes, long time coming.
Good,
it's a great
good.
change.
Well, how about the second rule change? Move the restricted area arc out from 3 feet to 4 feet. This is something we talked about with the NBA considering doing, if not, get rid of it at all. But certainly move it out another foot. I got to tell you, I think that this is a good idea. And one of the biggest reasons is I think that this call is made so inconsistently, and I think the reason that it is because it's so far under the basket that when players are running into the lane, there's so many players clogged together, and it's chaotic, and the referees honestly aren't looking at the feet and the positioning. And if they are, it's
Exactly.
getting blocked because there's too much traffic down there, and that's when the inconsistent call is made. If they move it out a little bit, the refs from half court can see it, on the sideline. I think it would be good for the game, not just the college level. I think it would be good for the NBA too. But speaking of college, I think this is a good idea for the restricted area arc to be moved out a foot, and I think we'd see more consistent calls with the charge or the block. What do you think, Rhett?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Kyle.
Good, I like agreement.
Unfortunately.
It's always good to agree. It's a fortunate thing.
I'm ready to debate.
Soon enough.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. 4 feet, it gets clogged up down there, like you were saying. And, I mean, the refs, they have a lot on their plate right then. They can't see, especially if there's a ton of traffic down there. They can't see if the feet's in the circle or out of the circle. So I think that moving that up, because it is far under the basket. So I would have to agree with you, Kyle.
Yeah, I agree with this, and I'm glad that we're on agreement, and I think that it will be a great change. And quite frankly, the block charge call area is a big point of emphasis for college and the NBA to address because it's one of the most inconsistent calls. And I think that this would be a step in the right direction for sure. How about this next rule? This is interesting to me, and I got to tell you, I don't agree with it. And I think that this is taking a step into the NBA's direction, and this is one of the reasons that I love college basketball. They're looking to make the rules for defensive players more strict because the game is apparently too physical right now. So they're basically looking to make it what the NBA has become. They think that the physicality of play has been a major concern for NCAA officials and coaches. They're addressing the emphasis on perimeter defense and post play mainly. But basically, so what? It's going to get to the touchy fouls now and all. I love I say I love it at the college level. I think at the college level, these players on every single possession play their hearts out, and they play great physical defense. And I think that it is one of the reasons it's so entertaining to watch college basketball. I think that this would be a poor decision to make. I think it'd be following the NBA, and I think we've already talked about the NBA being way too soft. I think that they need to take a step back, and I think they need to mimic the college level. But I think that this is ridiculous. I mean, too physical? Physical is entertaining. Basketball is a physical sport. You're looking to just change the game as everybody knows it, and it's driving me nuts, Rhett, this talk about doing the changing of physical play. It's just going to make more inconsistency, and now it's going to be at the college level with calls being way too inconsistent, and, oh my gosh, so he touched his arm, that's a foul? You know, that's where I see it going. I think it's a mistake. What about you?
I agree. I think it's a mistake. I can't stand how the NBA has gotten with the touchiness of the fouls. And I was just watching Bad Boys the other day, and boy, did it get me hyped.
Bad Boys.
It got me hyped. I love that type of physicality. Now, obviously, I don't think we should go to that type of physicality because things would not get good.
Wow.
But bringing some of that physical, when I say good, I mean concussions and people seriously getting hurt. I don't think LeBron could handle that.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is, I like the college level fouling wise. You know, they come out, play hard, physicality is there, and when you look into the NBA, well, to be honest, they're a bunch of pansies.
Yeah, and it's not the players' fault. It's really, we should be calling the officials and management pansies, if anything, because believe me, the NBA players could be physical, like at the college level. They just don't have the leeway to, because they've changed the game, and that's an issue, and that's what I see them trying to do here at the college level, and I think it's a problem. But basically, it just goes to show that they're looking to mimic the NBA, and I think that they're trying to change the game as they know it. It's just going to irritate fans, and I think there's going to be repercussions if it does happen. Let's go through a few more here because there are quite a bit of proposed rule changes. One that I really would like to see change, and this is something that even at the NBA level, how about hanging on the rim technical reduced to a one-shot foul? What do you think about hanging on the rim as it is being a technical?
I don't like that. I think that it definitely needs to be brought down from a technical foul. And I see that they were gonna make it a Class B technical foul. So that right there, I think that's a step. I like that step.
Yeah, it's going to be they're looking to make it a one-shot foul.
I think that sometimes it is a good thing by hanging on the rim.
Sometimes you need to.
Just
for protection of players if they're underneath you or whatever.
Yeah, that right there, I think is a good step in the right direction for that type of call. And I don't really see why they put that in place in the first place. I would understand, back when they didn't have like shatterproof.
I'll tell you why they do is because I think it goes along with taunting. The rule of taunting. You hang on the rim, you're sending a statement. Get back on defense. That's why.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I think that I'm glad that they're looking to change that. I hope they do. Obviously, the way I see it, okay, they want to keep hanging on the rim like a buffoon. Well, they're going to not be back on defense and get scored on. So that's their fault. And the coach will rip their butt and they'll be on the bench. So, let's get real, officials, and quit with these silly, stupid rules. It's really bothering a lot of fans, and I'd like to see it change. How about this one? Elimination of the 5-second closely guarded rule. This one drives me nuts. Basically, if you're outside of the perimeter, a certain away from the hoop, about 30 feet, if you're too closely guarding the defender for 5 seconds, it's a penalty. Basically, I think how it is right now is you'll get you'll get called for a foul, the way that I understand it, but they're looking to eliminate this, thank goodness, just like the dribbling for 5 seconds in one place rule drives me nuts that you have to keep moving, and this is at the college level, not the NBA. But what do you think about this, Rhett, the 5-second closely guarded rule that's in place?
I would like to see that eliminated. I think that's a step right in the right direction of bringing an NBA rule to college, and that's something that would be a great transition from not having to transition with that into the NBA. I don't see a need for that rule. That's for sure.
No,
Do you?
I really don't. And it's not called very often, but it just goes to show that they're looking to restrict and give the advantage to one other team. It's like some of these rules, it just seems common sense to me. Does this really seem like a good idea? Ridiculous. I'll just go mention a couple other ones here because there are quite a bit. What do you think about right now, currently, there is no pregame dunking allowed in college basketball, like at the high school level. What do you think about this?
I don't understand it. Don't understand it. Think that's it. I don't even have words for it. I think it's just dumb.
It goes to show how dumb it is. That the players,
that's kind of like
that they're restricted. It's ridiculous.
It's kind of like the rule. I don't remember what state it was, but you can't buy chocolate ice cream after sunset. It's one of those stupid rules. I swear. We had to do a thing in class one time, looking up stupid rules or stupid laws, and that was one of the laws. You couldn't buy chocolate ice cream after sunset.
Oh my goodness, unbelievable. Well, that I can compare it to something stupid like that. That's for sure, because that's what it seems like to me. How about this one? This one I want to see change. Currently, 10 seconds is allowed to advance the ball into the front court. I think it needs to be what the NBA is at 8 seconds. I think it will help prepare, much like changing the shot clock. I think it will help players with the pace of play, and I think that it will help them transition into the NBA for that reason. Do you agree with that?
I agree. It'd be a good transition. I don't really see the need for 10 seconds. Kind of like the shot clock thing. I don't see a need for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
it's just
a lot.
It might have been what I've just grew up knowing and watching, but I think that 30 seconds, that's a long time.
It is. It really is. So a couple of some other ones are, I'll just mention them. Just give me a stupid or fine comment. Adjusting the media timeout procedures to allow a timeout called within 30 seconds of a break or at any time after the scheduled media timeout becomes the media timeout.
Yeah.
Good call. Okay, I'll agree with you on that one because currently the media timeout procedures are brutal, and it's what extends the game. So I think that giving teams this leeway will be good, but basically you have to do it the right way. So having it not be within 30 seconds of a timeout, because let's face it, then the game won't stop as fast. If it's within 30 seconds after a media timeout that was just 2 minutes long, that a team can now call another timeout, that's a way for the game to take longer. And that's irritating.
Mm-hmm.
How about removing the ability for a coach to call timeout when the ball is live?
Don't like it. That's dumb.
I agree. Very dumb. Ridiculous. And finally, remove one team timeout in the second half and strictly focus on resuming play more quickly after a timeout.
No.
I like
that.
Part 2 of that. I like resuming play more quickly after a timeout, but I don't like taking a timeout away because I think that the right amount of timeouts are there for teams. Now,
exactly.
They're trying to do it this would be something, okay, if it were to be proposed, it would speed the game up. A lot of people get irritated with the amount of timeouts that are taken at the end of the game because it does extend it a long time, especially when some save like 3 or 4 at the end of the game. So that's where they're looking. I can see it being a good thing. It would speed the game up, but I'd have to agree for now. It's part of the game. It's kind of a tradition. It gives teams, it's part of a strategy so they can try and win the game. That's probably the right thing to do now, isn't it, Rhett?
Exactly.
All right, well, let's get into this last segment here. It'll be interesting to see what happens with those rule changes, but this is one we're really going to have to squeeze in here, Rhett, because this could be a part 2 on next week's show. This is a current debate that's been going on for years now, but I have a feeling we're going to agree on this one. Should the NCAA pay college players, yes or no? And let's start talking about why.
Yes.
And let's get into it, Rhett.
All right. So, selling merchandise, selling anything with their name on it or their number, representing it of them, that has to do with them. Yeah. And just like it's their job. It's their job. Doing a commercial with them, or really anything, being a bobblehead, sitting at the fan shop.
That's right.
They need to be getting a cut out of that merchandise. I feel like. I mean, some of them get a scholarship, but some of them don't. So, I think that
even then, the scholarship,
even if they're getting a scholarship, yes. I mean, some of them are coming from a poor place. I mean, some of them are rich, obviously, but, either way, they're going to be, like we've talked about before, Kyle, they're going to get kickbacks either way.
Oh, they sure are. And that's before I divulge into this, because I have had many discussions in my sport management degree and program at Western Kentucky University on this exact topic. Many papers written, presentations, and in fact, many athletes that are in my classes who have shared a little insight on even a mid-major school of what goes on. So stop being naive, NCAA, and it's time to make the right decision, because quite honestly, I think the fact that there are not stipends and extra money for players now is actually hurting the game, because believe me, there are things going on underneath regardless. They're getting paid in one way or the other. And you know why? They're having to sneak because of stupid rules that the NCAA has in place right now. Because regardless, players have to be able to accommodate their living situation. And if they're not getting anything from what is their job, wake up, NCAA. It is a job, and we'll get into some of the things why. And they don't have the ability to go get a job off of campus or even on campus unless it's in the off season, in which they're still putting in so many hours, so they really can't. It's unfair for these players. They don't have money. I look at just being us as students or something. I mean, I couldn't imagine if I didn't have the ability to go get a job. I wouldn't be able to afford anything. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
And it's not like the amount of money that they're looking for is ridiculous, considering what the NCAA makes. And I'm also going to get into that in a second. But I think that the foundation set for this year is the fact that there are restrictions as it is, and they're still viewing them as amateurs, is leading to the problems, is why so many teams are having to sneak in their recruiting and being paid under the table in certain ways. That's happening because of the NCAA. And I think they need to take a look in the mirror and see that they're the cause of the problem right now. And,
exactly.
I'm just going to give an example from one of the athletes on our football team that filled some light in on the situation. He's friends with a player on Alabama's football team. And he said that when he came to Western, which he was bribed to do, in one way or the other, for reasons of confidentiality and basically not admitting to things in front of the class and the professors. he couldn't exactly tell what might have helped his decision to come here, but basically he was able to tell about another school. His buddy who goes to Alabama happened to be poor as dirt, and he grew up with him in the projects, and basically he went to Alabama, and he went to Western here, and he gets a call from his friend after his first year at Alabama, and he says, "Hey, you got to come visit me. You got to see my brand new Lamborghini. It's unbelievable. Wake up, NCAA. Things are happening." I don't think he could afford that Lamborghini. So I wonder where he got it. Things are going on under the table, and especially from the Power 5 conferences and teams, and they've created their own enemy. But I want to go into some more of the points. Basically, they do not. There was an article that was posted, and one of the authors said, Division I football and men's basketball players do not merely play a sport of leisure. Rather, they're core members of their university's marketing team, as well as the labor force behind a lucrative secondary industry in hosting organized sporting events, which is exactly why they should get paid for their services. The amount of money that is raked in for these universities, and let me just say this. It is true that only about 20 of the Division I college football programs and basketball actually make a profit. That's besides the point. That's only because of the amount of expenses that there are, that they outweigh the revenue that's generated. But there is still a lot of revenue generated, and it is generated because of these players. And that's one of the biggest points that I can make, is that in then turn is what is making the NCAA the $14 billion a year industry that it is, as rich as it can be. Absolutely ridiculous. And so for that reason, they definitely should get paid as well.
Especially if they are going to raise the restriction for making it into the NBA to, 20? So you'd have to stay your sophomore year?
Yeah, they're looking to make it 2 years.
So if you're
at the college level.
That shows right there that there needs to be something done for the NCAA if they are going to restrict you from coming right after your freshman year. I think it's already crazy that you have to even go to college.
Let me tell you something. It amazes me that these student athletes I think it's comical that they can be considered amateurs. And I got to tell you, I know several athletes. I got to tell you, I don't think that I could do what they do. The amount of time that they put in to their sport, which is a job, let's be real, they're employees to the university. They're the ones that drive the money that is made. And, in one way or the other, whether they turn a profit or not, you don't think that the fact of all the winning helps bring students to the university and increase enrollment? You don't think that it helps with certain areas of the university getting projects done to make it a more beautiful campus?
Or getting money donated?
And the booster clubs. And, let's be real. And the fact of the matter is, again, in the same article, a lot of great points made. The typical Division I college football player devotes 43 hours per week to his sport. That's 3 more hours than the typical American work week. You've got to be kidding me with the fact that they're not employees. They don't have time for classes and the college experience. I've heard so many stories of, the players, they literally could not get their assignments in projects because they wake up at 5:30 in the morning for workouts, 2 a day. Then they have to go to class. Then they have practice again. And then they have more workouts. And by the time they're finally home, it's not until about 9, 10 at night. When are they going to sleep? You got to be able to do that. So it's ridiculous the amount of emphasis that the NCAA puts on them being amateurs, because they're not. They're $11 billion generating core, and I think it's terrible. How about this? The University of Alabama reported $143 million in athletic revenues. That's more than all 30 NHL teams and 25 of the 30 NBA teams. This money helps pay coaches, administrators, athletic directors very nicely. They even build more and renovate eloquent facilities. But do the players see a dime of that? No. Ridiculous. How about this? In 40 of the 50 U.S. states, the highest paid public official is currently the head coach of a state university's football or men's basketball team. Nick Saban, Alabama's football coach. His new contract will pay him over $7 million per year. Athletes even have to miss classes due to games and the NCAA tournament, which is generating large sums of revenues to the schools in itself and the NCAA. And the student athletes are the ones behind it all, and they receive nothing. The one solid, and again, we're basically going to have to cut this short, because this could be a whole long show's debate, Rhett. But I do want to add the direction that it's going in, and I want to get that. I want to get your take on it.
Don't worry, people. I'm still here.
There is going to be a change. And it's already started, but the NCAA will come crashing down with this. I think the players will win eventually. I want to see if you agree with that first, and maybe tell me why while I get to this last point here.
Throw a strike.
What do you think? Will the NCAA eventually be overturned, and the players will be getting paid?
They will more than likely be overturned, and I would love to see a little strike happen with the players. Goodness, I think that'd be a great little thing to go on.
Northwestern's football program 2 years ago started a players' union. They went to court with it. It went all the way to the Court of Appeals. They did not win, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be picked back up. They have the right to. What it takes is more players to get on board. I think that's the biggest reason they lost, because they're going up against a giant. They need a lot more help with the people that are trying to fight this. They will. It'll happen. Sonny Vaccaro.
I think that
absolutely.
Yeah, he's gonna step in, and I think he's gonna be the one person that is gonna help them push it to the top. I agree.
Here's the change that is in progress right now, and actually is probably going to happen very soon. The average student athlete is going to be receiving between $2,000 and $5,000 extra per school year. It's going in the right direction that these conferences are going to start paying their players, mainly because of how much money is made, because they can afford to do it, is what it is. This tried to be passed before, and it was calculated in. It's all based on the COA, cost of attendance, and they calculate this in and expenses and how much the player really does not have to be able to spend, and that's where they're coming up with these figures, and based on what the NCAA makes and the conferences in itself. But basically, they are going to give some leeway, and they are looking to start paying their players. Now, it might give – the one concern with this is it's going to give an edge up in recruiting, but you know what? That's part of the game. That is part of the –
You don't think Kentucky has an edge up in recruiting either way?
It happens either way, and it just happens to be that some conferences make more money and more schools have more money to be able to do that. But it is worth that that conferences have their leeway in making rules. They have their own committee, and that's why this change is starting, that conferences are going to be paying their athletes between $2,000 and $5,000 depending on the school.
I think that's a good amount.
Too.
And they don't need to make a ton, that's for sure. But they need to be, because they're already having housing and their food paid for. So a little extra money for things that they should be able to get to do in the off season or whatnot, or having a little funds built up if they need to send it back home for their family. I mean, a lot of them are from the projects or not from a wealthy family. So, some players do need to help out.
Exactly.
And And I think that's a great thing that they're implementing there.
I agree. Again, we have to cut it short. This could be many more shows that we talk about it, and maybe it will come back up in the future, but we have to cut it off because we are out of time. We've had some good talking.
And Kyle loves that debate.
I do. I wish I actually had somebody that had disagreed with me, though. It would make it a little more juicy, but that's okay. I like agreeing with you, Rhett. Makes for good sports talk when we're on the same page.
Thank you.
But I do look forward to a debate.
I would love to disagree with you because you get a little fiery.
I get fire in my belly. There's no doubt about it.
Especially on this topic. You get outraged.
I do love to talk about this. It's very relevant and practical. So we will probably get back to it in the future, but for now, that is it. To recap what was talked about on the show, we discussed Tom Thibodeau being fired. We talked about Tom Brady's punishment for Deflategate. We chatted about upcoming rule changes in college basketball and chimed in on the NCAA paying college players debate. That is all that we have for today. Thank you for tuning into our show. Feel free to leave feedback as we want to be able to address comments and questions on the show. Tweet and retweet the show at Kyle M. Newman, at Rhett Hensley, and at Indiana Pacers Talk. We will be back at it next Monday by 8 Eastern Time. I'm Kyle Newman.
And I'm Rhett Hensley.
Have a good night.